Recently, we've had a few HDMI IPS kits come out for the Game Boy Advance. These kits are essentially IPS screen upgrades that also feature a micro HDMI port so you can output video and sound to a modern HD television. However, the main problem with these kits is that you are now tethered to the TV and are using the controls of the GBA to play games. This is certainly not ideal. However, it looks like we now have a solution to this problem. Let's take a closer look. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to another episode of Retro Renew. Today we'll be looking at a mod that sort of fixes a problem of another mod. So not long ago, I installed this very cool IPS kit into this Zelda-themed GBA. This kit also features HDMI video output, which is awesome and boasts pretty good video quality. Now on its own, this kit is great. You get a really nice IPS screen with bright and vivid colors. And you can output video easily to an HD television through the HDMI port on top. I actually did a whole video covering this kit, which I'll have linked somewhere on screen, and I'll also have it linked down below. Now, one of the biggest problems of this kit, which I mentioned in that video, is you are tethered to the TV, and you have to use the GBA's onboard controls to play games. It would be so much better if we could just connect the GBA to the TV and somehow use a wireless controller to play games on the console, essentially turning the GBA into a Switch-like device. Now that's precisely where this USB-C docking kit comes into play. It was actually brought to my attention by Jerome from the Macho Nacho Discord server, which if you haven't joined yet, you should definitely check out. I'll have it linked in the video description. Jerome posted a link to AliExpress for this kit and I was actually pretty interested in it. Retro Game Repair Shop actually also sells this kit, so if after you watch this video you think this is something you may be interested in, you can pick it up from them and save 10% if you use my coupon code TITO at checkout. So I'll have all that information down below in the video description. Anyway, this docking station essentially allows you to control the Game Boy Advance using either a SNES controller or one of those mini Nintendo console controllers, both of which have wireless options. So this basically solves the fundamental problem of the HDMI IPS kits. You are now no longer tethered to the TV, and it essentially turns the GBA into a Switch-like device, which is pretty awesome. Now, I must say, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and there are a few drawbacks to this kit. So be sure to stay tuned to the pros and cons portion of this video, and I'll go over my overall thoughts on the mod. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you the contents of this docking station kit. Then I'll demonstrate how to install it into your Game Boy Advance, go over all of its features, review the pros and cons, and of course provide you with my overall thoughts. So the first item in this kit is what I like to call the interface board. This installs inside the GBA and is what connects it to the docking station via the USB-C port. We also get a pair of flex cables. These connect to all the various vias to tap into the button input signals. We actually get two pairs of these, I suppose in case one gets messed up. They also seem to have double-sided adhesive on them, which is unique and something I really haven't seen before. I suppose this helps keep them in place while you solder them to the GBA motherboard. Additionally, you also get a few strands of wires and an assortment of adhesive foam and double-sided tape. And of course, we have the dock itself. It's nice and simple with a USB-C plug here, which is off-center, an SNES controller port on the right side, with a mini Nintendo console port on the left. And on the back is another USB-C port to power the unit. And of course, I will be modding this GBA, which already has the HDMI IPS kit installed. Please note that you do not need to have the HDMI kit installed in order for the docking station to work. However, with that said, it won't make much sense installing this kit without it, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so that's everything included in this kit. Now let me show you how to install it. So for this mod, we simply need to install the interface board. Since we already have the Funny Playing IPS kit as well as the HDMI kit installed, we don't need to worry about those. To see how I installed the IPS kit and HDMI mod, refer to the video that I have linked in the video description. Okay, first, simply open up the console by unfastening all the case screws. Then remove the 3 screws securing the motherboard to the front shell. With the motherboard free, we can simply flip it out as shown. No need to desolder any wires, remove any components, or undo any of the work that I did for the HDMI or IPS mod kit. Now simply remove any of the button membranes if they got stuck to the motherboard. You'll also want to move the speaker out of the way so we can install the flex ribbon cables. Let's first grab the ribbon which will tap the A and B input button signal, and then peel off the release paper for the adhesive. Then carefully move the ribbon into position so that it overlays on top of this cluster of test points. Once in place, make sure the ribbon is firmly adhered to the motherboard. Now we can go ahead and solder the ribbon to those 3 test points. Awesome, now moving to the other side, the other ribbon has quite a few more solder points, so it may be a little bit trickier to align. But take your time and you should be okay. After everything is aligned, I like to use a spudger to make sure the ribbon is properly adhered to the motherboard. Then go around and again solder all the points on the ribbon. Great, now we need to solder a wire to both the positive and negative battery terminals. Now we have to start modding the shell. The interface board will reside in this area of the front shell. With the interface board laid out in its approximate position, we can mark the areas that we need to cut out to create an opening for the USB-C port. I start things off with my craft knife to gouge each end of where I will be creating an opening. Then I use my flush cutters to cut away large chunks, which actually proved to be a bit of a mistake since this caused a small crack in the shell. I'd recommend avoiding flush cutters on aftermarket shells like this one, but you should be okay with authentic factory Nintendo shells. Anyway, I finish things off as usual with a file. I file away material until I am happy with the fitment of the USB-C port. I also put down some masking tape to protect the inner surface of the shell from accidental swipes of the file. Awesome, so it looks like we made some pretty good progress on this cutout. However, in order to make the fitment just a little bit better, we need to file the left side of the opening shown here at a sort of 45-degree angle due to the shape of the PCB. I also use the file to remove the sharp edges and burrs on the PCB, which will help with the overall fitment. Here you can see the 45-degree angled edge. And here's another view compared to the perpendicular edge on the other side. And this is what the fitment looks like. Now cut a piece of the included double-sided adhesive foam so that it fits on the bottom of the interface board as shown. Then peel away the release paper and drop it into the front shell. Then cut a piece of the thick foam gasket material included in the kit so that it fits over the USB-C port as shown. This will help keep the interface board in place when everything is all buttoned up so that it doesn't move around. And then go ahead and put all the buttons and membranes back into the front shell. Now proceed to flipping the motherboard back into its final position. However, before screwing it in, we want to first insert both ribbons into the interface board. I actually had to do this part off camera because it was just a little bit too hard to get to, but this is what it should look like when it's installed. Then go ahead and insert the ribbon cable on the other side. This one has considerably more slack and is much easier to install than the other side. Now you can go ahead and secure the motherboard into the front shell with the 3 JIS screws. Before we close the shell, we need to solder the positive and negative wires to the interface board. First tin both pads on the board, and then solder a wire to each, with the negative battery terminal wire going to ground and the positive terminal battery wire going to the pad labeled 3VO. Awesome, once that's done, you can tuck any excess wires underneath the motherboard like so. Before we can close the shell, we first need to trim some of this plastic wall behind the battery compartment. This will allow the power wires we just soldered to pass through without being pinched. Here you can see the area that I removed, allowing the wires to not be pinched once we install the rear shell. Now, go ahead and reassemble the console. And you're done. Okay, so with the GBA fitted with docking capability, what are some of the features this thing boasts? Well, it's not really anything to write home about. It does what it's supposed to do, and it does it well. I can control the GBA with a wireless controller while it's connected to an HD television. And at that, it does a fantastic job. Here you can see me playing some games, and it's honestly a fairly good experience overall. I'm using an 8BitDo SN30 controller and have zero complaints. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those wireless mini console controllers, but I imagine it works just as well. I think if you have one of these IPS HDMI mod kits installed in your GBA like mine, this is a very worthwhile kit to install. And beyond being able to control the GBA through an external controller, there really isn't anything else this thing does. It simply solves the issue of being physically tethered to a television if you have one of these HDMI video out mod kits installed in your GBA. Okay, so we've established that this mod is certainly doing its job, but now let's get into the pros and cons. Starting with the pros, like I've said previously, this mod definitely does its job well, and it solves the issue that these TV out mod kits have definitely suffered from. Additionally, it works pretty much with any screen-modded GBA console. They even have this graphic which goes over the compatible mods, but it should in essence be compatible with almost anything since we're really only tapping the button input signals. Additionally, I really like the flex cables. They made tapping all the various input signals a breeze while also providing a very clean install. And I like how they use the double-sided adhesive on these. This assisted with the installation and kept the ribbon flush against the motherboard. I think kits that utilize flex cables, which we're seeing more and more of, could really benefit from having this double-sided adhesive pre-applied. So really, that's where the pros end and the cons begin, so let's go over those. I would say the biggest con is that this mod could have been so much more. Just imagine if this was a fully integrated kit that includes HDMI video out, wireless controller support, and battery charging all through a single USB-C port. Now that would be an amazing mod. As is though, I have to say it is a bit unsightly having the HDMI cable sticking out on top. This mod essentially has a single purpose, and that's controlling the GBA. Nothing wrong with that, but I see the potential in this type of mod and it just leaves me wanting something more, as selfish as that sounds. Another con that I ran into was how the flex cables connect to the interface board. It was a pretty awkward connection, and I think it may need to be slightly redesigned just a bit since I did struggle to get it installed. But that could just have been due to how I installed this kit, and I think if I perhaps inserted the cable earlier in the installation process, this issue could have been avoided. Another con is that this mod does require some shell modding. I'm not the biggest fan of modding shells, but it is necessary for a mod like this. And really the last con that I could think of is that you have to provide your own USB-C cable and power adapter. Now this isn't a huge deal by any measure, but it is something to consider. So there you have it, the docking station kit for the Game Boy Advance. A mod that fixes, well, another mod. So what do you all think? Would you like to see a new iteration of this kit that incorporates more features? If so, what features would you like to see included? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so definitely drop me a line down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next Thursday.